The wine comes first. Then the dishes follow. Roasted boar, figs soaked in honey, trays of oysters still wet with brine. Music, you're reclining 3 cushions away from the ruler of Rome. Your wife sits beside you. Across the table, Eurodora only Sextina adjusts her shawl with shaking hands. The hall fills with senators, generals, wives, children. Everyone who matters in the empire has been summoned. Then Caligula rises. He doesn't offer a toast. He makes no announcement. He walks, slowly, past consuls, past prefects, past men who command entire legions. He stops behind your daughter. His hand settles on her shoulder. He speaks 5 words. Not to her, to you. No one gasps. No one moves, because everyone here already understands what you are learning now. Inside this palace, refusal is the same as signing your own death sentence. So you do what every father in this room has already done before you. You smile. You nod. You watch her rise and follow him. When she returns an hour later, quiet, pale, adjusting her dress, you pour more wine. You pretend nothing happened, because Rome has just taught you something permanent. The empire doesn't care what you witness. It only cares what you agree to forget. If this is the history they never taught you, the documented truth they hoped would stay buried, then subscribe now, because we uncover these stories one by one. No comfort. No gloss. Only what the records actually say. What happened inside these walls didn't disappear. It was archived, and if you're here because silence shouldn't erase documented history, stay with us. We're going back inside. In 37 AD, Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus came to power. Rome didn't elevate a stranger. They elevated a legacy. His father, Germanicus, had been the most adored general Rome ever produced. Crowds wept at his funeral. Riots erupted when rumors spread that Emperor Tiberius had arranged his death. His mother, Agrippina, the elder, was the granddaughter of Augustus himself. She marched with legions. She stood among soldiers while pregnant. Their children embodied everything Rome told itself it still valued: discipline, noble blood, military honor, divine descent. When Tiberius finally died, the Senate didn't debate. They offered the purple immediately. Gaius called Caligula. Little boots from the tiny soldier sandals he wore as a child was only 24. Rome exploded in celebration. Political prisoners freed. Games funded. Granaries opened. Taxes reduced. Suetonius records that more than 160,000 animals were sacrificed in the first 3 months alone. For 7 months, it felt like relief, like renewal. Then Caligula collapsed. October 37 AD, a fever so severe that priests were dispatched to every temple. Senators pledged their lives. If he survived, one, Antonius Secundus, even swore he would fight as a gladiator. Philo of Alexandria wrote that the entire empire held its breath. Grain shipments halted, markets closed, messengers rode non-stop between provinces and Rome. 4 days, Caligula hovered between life and death, and when he woke, the sources fracture. Suetonius, Cassius Dio, Philo, Seneca, all agree something changed. None agree why. Some blamed brain fever. Others whispered poison. Modern scholars suggest epilepsy, encephalitis, endocrine collapse. But the diagnosis doesn't matter, because the man who opened his eyes was not the man who closed them. Within weeks, Caligula declared himself divine. He demanded temples built in his honor. He forced senators to run beside his chariot for miles, sweating in formal dress. He ordered a floating bridge across the Bay of Aieto miles, long just to ride across, where in Alexander the Great's armor, ships meant for grain transport were diverted. He revived treason courts, the same ones that had destroyed his family. And then he changed the banquets. At first, Rome called it eccentricity, youthful arrogance, the excess of sudden power. But the pattern emerged quickly. This wasn't chaos. It was design. Attendance was mandatory. Summons arrive. The emperor requests your presence. Bring your wife, bring your daughters if they are of age. Refusal was never mentioned because refusal didn't need to be outlawed. Everyone remembered Tiberius. The dining halls stretched hundreds of feet. Couches arranged by rank. Slaves poured wine and carried delicacies from Egypt and Gaul. Caligula reclined at the head, and he watched. Not the food, not the performers. The women. Ancient writers describe what became routine. He would stare openly at a senator's wife, while her husband sat several couches away. Sometimes he commented aloud. Comparisons. Criticism. Praise designed not to flatter but to humiliate. Then, a gesture. A servant approached. A whisper. The woman stood. She followed. The room continued eating. Conversation resumed. Acknowledgement meant choice. Silence meant survival. Rome chose survival every time. Suetonius wrote plainly that Caligula slept with all his sisters, parading them beside him at banquets, while his wife reclined above. But the sisters weren't alone. Seneca describes how Caligula evaluated the consul's wife, Lalia Paulina, then removed her. Cassius Dio writes, he summoned the wives of men as if to honor them. After inspecting them like slaves for sale, he chose whichever pleased him. Sometimes he forced the husbands to watch, as if to honor them as the key phrase, because the summons came disguised as favor. Refusal wasn't defense, it was insult. An insult to the emperor meant death. Afterward, Caligula returned to the table and openly discussed what had happened. Praise. Criticism. Public exhibition. The palace kept records. Secretaries logged attendance. Names. Who came? Who brought whom? Who left early on? Why? Pliny the Elder confirms these archives existed for decades before being destroyed under later emperors. While they existed, they served a function. They turned attendance into evidence, evidence into complicity. Men who witnessed could never testify. Some were rewarded land, titles, offices. Others were mocked, fined, exiled. The randomness was intentional. Predictable punishment creates resistance. Arbitrary punishment isolates. Each man acted alone. Seneca observed generals whisper at dinner, terrified that agreement itself could be mistaken for conspiracy. In 39 AD, after a failed plot, Caligula didn't stop with executions. He summoned the wives, displayed the daughters, then charged the men weeks later. Humiliation had already broken them. One conspirator's cousin was promoted. The message was unmistakable. Family loyalty could destroy you. Imperial loyalty could save you. Choose. Some senators sent their wives away. Caligula demanded proof. Medical inspections, sworn testimony. Failure meant fines or loss of rank. One man tried placing his wife between older matrons. Caligula praised him, then summoned all three women. When they returned, the senator was exiled. His wife stayed. Attendance was ownership. Some women anticipated the system. Lalia Paulina arrived, wearing emeralds worth 40 million. Not protest. Advertisement. Families began incorporating imperial access into marriage negotiations. Humiliation was rebranded as prestige, because admitting powerlessness was worse. Fear alone isn't enough to control an empire. Caligula alternated terror with reward. After a wife was taken, the husband might be promoted. After a daughter vanished, a grained contract followed. Philo describes men waiting outside the emperor's chambers, not weeping, but bargaining. The palace became a marketplace. Submission was currency. Gifts arrived in advance. Gold. Estates. Slaves. Debt spread through the Senate. When fortunes collapsed, Caligula auctioned confiscated property and forced families to bid on their own possessions. Refusal meant insult. Participation meant silence. Rome complir. Not all compliance was forced. Valerius Catullus divorced his wife, remarried a young patrician. 3 weeks later, he brought her to a banquet. She was summoned. He was rewarded. Marriage contracts began including clauses about duties to the state. Submission entered the law. The Praetorian Guard enforced everything. They escorted the women. They said nothing. Caligula doubled their pay. Loyalty followed money in, till humiliation reached them too. Cassius Sharia was mocked publicly. Passwords ridiculed him. Ritual humiliation. He endured until AD. By late 40 AD, conspiracies existed, but none moved too much fear, too little trust. Sharia's plot succeeded because it was small. January 24th, 41 AD. A corridor beneath the palace. The German bodyguards halted on Sharia's command. The blade struck from behind. 30 wounds. Caligula, died unrecognizable. His wife was killed. His infant daughter's head smashed. Not justice. Erasure. The Senate debated restoring the Republic for 6 hours. Then the Praetorians found Claudius hiding behind a curtain. They crowned him Emperor for. The Senate confirmed him the same day. The Republic was never mentioned again. Sharia was executed. The others vanished from record. The women mostly vanished. Names disappear. Genealogies break. Caligula was condemned to oblivion, not to honor victims, but to erase responsibility. The system remained. Only the performance changed. Rome called it stability. History called it madness. But madness doesn't build systems. Architecture does. And silence was its foundation. If this history matters, stay with us.